Civility can be a challenge. According to the annual Civility in America report by Weber Shandwick, Powell Tate, and KRC Research, many Americans find that incivility is a problem in our society. The report notes that 54% of Americans expect civility to get worse, and 57% find the internet or social media are to blame. How can we create a more civil society? My name is Katharine Owens, and I'm the director of the Jodi Rell Center for Public Service at the University of Hartford in Connecticut. The center focuses on ethics in government, the importance of civil discourse in politics, and citizen involvement in public service and government. This is our podcast, Season 1. Today, we talk with Windsor Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Terrel Hill. Self-described as honest to a fault, Dr. Hill seeks to provide opportunities for others and to help grow leaders. He shares with us how he puts civility into practice. It's nice to meet you. We really appreciate your time. And in honor of that time, I'm just going to jump right in and begin the questions. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in public life?
So public life, I'm going to stretch the definition a little bit. Okay. Mm-hmm. So my foundation was and is the church. So mom is a retired Springfield police officer and a pastor. It'll actually be 30 years for her next week as a pastor. Wow. So obviously when you're a pastor's kid, you don't have a choice. You do a lot of work. So in the church, it doesn't matter. So that's public service, whether it's cleaning toilets, vacuuming, singing in the choir, speaking on Sunday when she tells you to, teaching Sunday school, doing vacation Bible school, right? And so
yes,
going to the soup kitchen, whatever, right? You do whatever. And so it's been instilled in us, and it's actually, throughout our family to give back. And so that's something I've been doing since I was very young. When I was in the military, I was stationed in Frankfurt, West Germany. And people don't know this about the military, but the military, a big focus is to give back, especially to the communities in which, that particular base exists. So whenever they were doing anything in the community overseas, whether it was to be part of a mini marathon or, local festival, whatever they needed, I was always volunteering to do stuff like that. And it's a nice way to meet people, right? I like meeting people. And so fast forward, I did it in college when I came out of service. I continued to do work. When I started teaching in Newport News, Virginia, I immediately, because of my belief in community service, I had my students doing many community projects. Many of them are still standing now down there from 1992 to 96. So I'm very proud of that. And, as an educator, everything we're supposed to do, I'll say, is service to the community. Teaching folks, children, is service to the community and society, because you are the one imparting knowledge and, hopefully helping that young person prepare for their own experience in adulthood. So it's always been a part of what I do.
Yeah, we don't usually think of it that way, but you're absolutely right. It is a service to our community and to society. So what do you think defines you as a public figure?
You mean what other people say about me? Is this a family show? Let me say, no. I think what defines me, or I like to say, because I was a business major, I wasn't actually an education major. So I think my brand is, that I'm very passionate about the work that I do, whatever that endeavor is, honest and honest to a fault, I'll actually say. And I look to help others grow that are around me, because I've been in leadership now here in Connecticut schools, almost 20 years. So I help grow leaders. I know that's my brand, to help grow leaders and grow others. So when people talk about me, they'll say like, he's going to tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. Um, but he will look out for you. He will take care of you. I believe in opening up doors for other people. If I have an opportunity by virtue of my position or someone I know to help someone else, we don't have to be, belong to any particular club or organization together. If I think you're good people and you're going to pay it forward, then I'm going to do my best to create that opportunity for you. And I believe that's what people know me for professionally.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. We need more of that, I think, in Connecticut. So,
That's what
yeah. So people may think, looking around at sort of the things that are happening in our world right now, in American society and culture and politics, they might think that things are worse than they've ever been. What do you think stays the same in politics, and what do you think is different about what's happening kind of right now?
So I got to say, first and foremost, that I'm not like that, you know, fatalist person. So things are bad, but I don't know about the worst thing they've ever been, right? Because I listened to I just finished a meeting with a staff member, and we're the same age, early 50s, and I'm like, I can look at young people today and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe they do that, right? But I know parents. I was saying to her, I said, I remember, late 70s, early 80s when we were in Walkmans to junior high school, and
Yeah.
teachers knew that the end of the world was coming because kids were no longer going to listen. They were on those Walkmen. So it's like we all think the next generation is worse than the last. That being said, I think we're in a repeat cycle right now, sort of like a second rinse in the washing machine. um,
Mm-hmm.
Things that we've seen, particularly over the last 4 years. And I don't mind saying, I'm pretty direct. I don't blame Donald Trump for all the ills in America at all. I didn't vote for him and wouldn't, but I think he just was the masterful businessman, at least at the start, because he's not good in the long run as a businessman. But I think he was
Right.
masterful. He exploited what was out there, right? Stuff bubbling under the surface, people angry. You exploit people's emotions, right? So in America, we were tired of political correctness, and certain factions in society didn't like the fact that they felt others were gaining something, which inherently means if they're gaining, I must be losing something, right? No one wanted to believe that. How about people who are working for it could actually be gaining, and the people who aren't working for it, you're getting what you worked for, right?
Right.
So and politicians, unfortunately, too many of them. I don't want to do a broad brush, but this is a pretty big brush that I'm using. They've shown themselves to be, as I think historically, nothing different, to be about themselves. I just think
Mm-hmm.
now with the advent of social media and the fact that information can move so much faster, and gain so much quicker, that they can't hide it. But I would imagine we had these same politicians based on our history books, right? As
Mm-hmm.
washed, whitewashed as they can be, they were the same 200 years ago, 100 years ago, right? It's during the Depression, after the Depression. Like, if people feel like they can get away with something, and if people feel like they can gain power, right? They're not conceding that power, and we just see it from a different context now because it's always there. We don't have to wait for breaking news anymore, right? Walter Cronkite is not going to come out and say, "Oh, it's just not going to happen," right? It's happening. You get a tweet or something is like it's trending, right? So it moves so fast. But I don't necessarily believe that anything's worse. I just think we're repeating the ills of the past because we didn't learn the lessons that we needed to learn.
Right. No, I think that's a really insightful take on it. So at the Rell Center, we talk a lot about civility because that's one of the core values of the center. And right now, actually, we're hosting an award, a competition to recognize students and clubs or schools or classrooms that have promoted civility through a program or a project or initiative. We're doing that right now, and we'll share the information with our listeners. You have a really big job. You work in a field where people feel really strongly about policy. So
Tell
how,
me about
so how do you personally put civility into this?
So I taught critical thinking for 7 years at Springfield College. and previously 4 different summers at Westfield State University, which is my undergrad alma mater plug. So
Mhm.
I just believe that, I always ask folks, do you want people to hear you, or do you just want to be heard? Right? And I give it a distinction. I believe when people hear you, it causes them to think and hopefully take action, right? They may not do exactly what you want because they don't have to be convinced all the time, but they're at least considering your words and, the thoughts and the ideologies that you put forth. But being heard is just like hitting a cymbal, clanging a pot. Did you hear that? Yes. There's no meaning to it, right? Like, was this a note from a song that you were trying to tell me? Like, what was the purpose? Like, there's nothing there. So I have always been wanted to be someone who I want people to hear me, because I think that what I'm saying, and people can take it how they want. I think I'm not wasting words. I'm saying something important. If I really want folks to hear, especially sitting in my position, right? I can't just throw out, frivolous statements. So, and I don't. I do my research. I consider, others' views. I I touch base with my mentors, to make sure that, like, hey, am I thinking the right way, or what do you think about this? I'm thinking of saying this or doing this. Um, and I want them to hear me. And no one's going to hear you if you're yelling at them, if you are calling them out of their name, if you are finishing every sentence with "that's just stupid." Um,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm not perfect, so I will say I'm just growing continuously. I'm a work in progress, right? So I just find myself, even when people say some of the most evil things in my thoughts, right? Because I don't have excuses for older folks. And when I say older folks,
Mhm.
I'm like folks who should know better, right? Children can say a lot of things, but when you're an adult, you've learned and you know. So when you say something, very rarely do I believe, oh, that was a mistake. You actually went through a thought process and you allowed that to come from your brain through your vocal cords and out of your mouth. So, and you intended some kind of response.
Mhm.
And so what I shared at CABE is that as I'm growing, I used to engage. I love debate, but I love
Mhm.
debate for intellectual stimulation. I don't love debate for the sake of hearing two drums clang or bang. So if I look at you and determine that this conversation is going nowhere, or you have very little information, um, I choose not to engage. Now you can
Mhm.
pursue me if you want to, but that'll be to your own demise, because I think my verbal skills are pretty sharp. So, and I'm quick with wit. So you might be demolished emotionally if you keep coming. So it's best that you just, like, if I say, let's leave this alone because we're not going to go anywhere. It's like, again, I will fall back on, the Trump supporter and, a Democrat, just anyone, right? I'm not
Mhm.
judging the Trump supporters like you're all bad people. It's not my judgment. I've asked over the years, could you explain what made you want to support this person? Right? I have had no one give me any reasoning, and I've talked to folks of all different races, even family members, right?
Mhm.
No good reason, none whatsoever. The closest thing I heard was, or two things, you know, he tells it like it is, and he's a businessman. Now all my family is from New York City. So they've
Mhm.
been knowing the Trumps for a long time. He's actually not that good of a businessman when you give people facts, right? And so
Mhm.
then they present with facts, like, oh, that's what the media says. I'm like, no, actually, we know him in New York City. So it's like
Mhm.
he's a television showman now, right? And he's good at talking. He's got skills. But and telling it
Mhm.
like it is, so he tells it like it is and it's okay, even though it may, say something completely dismissive or disrespectful of a whole group of people, of gender group. It doesn't matter, right? He can say it, but if these
Mhm.
other folks say it, then you feel like that's wrong. So your
Mhm.
argument doesn't stand because you can't stand strong on your position, but then you disagree with it when someone else stands on it from the opposite side. So
Mhm.
I'm like, I understand there's really nothing to discuss. And then people get emotional. So if your emotions come into it, then we're not really getting anywhere. And I know stereotype is all black folks supposed to be just so emotional, right? When we talk about something.
Mhm.
I think people like to do the stereotype and the whitewash. I can be passionate, but I will tell people I'm passionate, but I actually know my data. I know my
Mhm.
facts. So Now, if I'm
Mhm.
wrong, show me where I'm wrong, and I will correct. I will apologize and correct that. But I'm presenting data to give you an intellectual argument, and you're presenting an emotional argument, and you sound like the 5 o'clock news or the trending topics again on Twitter. So, or
Mhm.
clickbait. You haven't read anything. You just, you know, it sounds so familiar. And I hear so many people saying exactly the same thing verbatim. You know, I know statistically that's impossible to do that across a nation. That's impossible to do it across your
Mhm.
house, right? You
Right.
you give a message over here. By the time it goes around the circle, the words are changed. So there's no way people all over an entire country, 300 plus million people, can say exactly the same thing all the time about the same topic, word for word. So there's really no
Mhm.
thought, there's no research there, and so I just choose not to engage.
Mm. That's a good strategy. It's a hard one, I think, especially given our social media and our access to it, to really kind of make that decision and stick by it. But I'm sure it's really good for your mental health too.
And your heart and your blood pressure, right? So
Right.
I would like to live a little longer. So,
Right.
and
Right.
and I feel it's taking a toll, right? It's tough because when you're,
Hmm.
you really want to see what the best for people in society. It's tough, but you have to decide too that you're going to live, and you're like, well, where am I going to? Where am I going with this, right? And I think of all the proverbs and the adages, right? If you wrestle with a pig, people from a distance won't know the difference, right? And
Mm.
why would you engage a fool, right? Only a fool engages a
Mm.
fool in a debate. Like you're what we and I'm not calling people fools. I'm just using those analogies because like if there is no meeting of the minds, then
Hmm.
there's nothing. Then the whole situation, goes to the very opposite of what you're talking about. Then there is no civility because now it's a
Hmm.
matter of one-upmanship, right? Yelling, threatening, posturing, whatever you feel, right? Calling each other names, like, and so that's how I'm going to win this. And again, having taught critical thinking, I want to win it intellectually. I want you to say, "Wow, I never thought about it that way," or "You gave
Hmm.
me something to go research. Let me go look this up." That's what I would
Hmm.
prefer, and I'm
Hmm.
open to it both ways. I'm open. You say something I'm not really sure of, I haven't researched, I will say, you know what, I didn't know that, but let me go look it up. I'm not going to accept it right now here and say, oh, okay, I'm a convert. I'm gonna go look it up. But you gave me something to look
Hmm.
into.
Hmm. It's almost recognizing when people are really open to a message and listening on any level and working with that. Yeah. So how do you strike a balance of being civil while also standing up for the things that you think are important?
So everything I just said, wipe it out, right? About not engaging. When it comes to things that are just too important, like so in my field, students, right, the kids. Like that's what we're all here for. I don't care what your role is. If you work in education in any facet or any area, it's for the young people. And so if something is going to be harmful to young people or of no benefit to them, I'm not letting that pass. And
Mhm.
so then you'll see a different, Terrell. That's the shutdown Terrell. I'm like, how does that benefit my students? If it's only benefiting you, then I'm telling you that. So I understand what you're saying. You're not listening. No, I understand you. So you want this done because you will gain something from it. Understood.
Mhm.
What will the students gain from it? There
Mhm.
have to be non-negotiables, right? I'm not going to do something that's going to deliberately or in as much as I can find out information, you know, even inadvertently harm anyone.
Mhm.
I'm not a party to that. And I always, in the other part of critical thinking is asking why, so you can get to better answers, right? So I'm going to do
Mhm.
this. Why? Why do you think that's the best course of action? Okay.
Mhm.
Why haven't you considered this course of action? Who do you think who will benefit from this? Who potentially could be harmed? You have to ask those questions, right? And sometimes people
Mhm.
want to go full steam ahead. I can be that person, like impatient at times, but if you want to make sure that the decision is the best decision, you need to take the time to ask those questions. Can anybody be harmed by this? Like, who could be offended? Now you have to get to a point where you're not going to be able to check off every box. Sometimes someone's going to lose in the situation, and so I would dare say acknowledge that, but say I'm not allowing this to go on though. If this is going to
Mhm.
harm students, it's not going to happen. That's just the base level. And I'm the same way when it comes to the staff,
Mhm.
families. I'm like, if all my families can't access this, then I'm not going to tout this as the best thing since sliced bread. This is
Right.
for those families, right? So I was told I started these coffee talks in the community in
Mhm.
September. I wanted to because I don't like using social media to talk to families. I know they use social media for all that. I use social media to show off my socks. I'm all into the sock game. So, and trips and fun stuff, right? It's fun. It should be an escape. It is not for business for me. So, if you want to talk to me, you want to know what's going on, you want to know why I made certain decisions or what do I think about certain things. I told my exec, I want to start these conversations. I guess I'm an old soul. I believe in those fireside chats with actually having people at the fireside too. So
Mhm.
so I meet at a coffee place right now while it's still decent outside, in the center of town, the Bean. And, I'll spend an hour. Last month it was 2 hours, but tomorrow morning
Mm.
I'm going to try to keep it to an hour, talking to people, whoever shows up. And so I'm also aware that everyone can't show up in the morning for those conversations, right? I'm at
Mhm.
work, it's my time. But now I have my exec, like we are looking to schedule some evening coffee talks. And I was telling him at the board meeting last night, man, I thought I came up with a cool marketing name. Now I got to come up with another name because I'm not really trying to have coffee at night, So, but
Right.
we'll catch it. But it's really, at the substance and the core, it's about connecting with those families and considering families who don't have that same schedule, right?
Mhm.
Everyone's not a stay-at-home mom or dad. Everyone doesn't work from home. Everyone doesn't have the flexibility on their job to be available for these talks at this time. And what may eventually happen as well, what I did with my teachers all last year during the heart of the COVID pandemic, is I started these straight talks so that people could stop
Mhm.
living on rumors and myths and everything else. So every Monday afternoon, my entire district could tune into a Zoom, and I was
Mhm.
there with the local health officials and my cabinet members, and I answered their questions for an hour straight, giving them
Wow.
updates from the state and answer. And they say at the end of the year that they had appreciated that. So I may do something similar for parents. Um,
Mhm.
just so if you want to know, ask me. Don't assume you know because
Mhm.
your neighbor said it or you saw something on Facebook. Because last year,
Right.
according to all those rumors on social media, my youngest child, the last one in the house, who was at the high school here in town, um, oh, he knows something's not safe because his daughter's not even going to school. I heard, and I let her read it, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Yo, who they talking about, Dad? Y'all make me get on that bus every morning."
Oh, wow. I love that though. Those are both such fantastic ideas. I can only imagine during the pandemic that that was a real lifeline for your faculty and staff, that community. And then with the coffee talks, how's the reception been with your parents and families?
So we had the one in September, the first one, and it was great. Like I said, it was 2 hours because I was open, but I'm like, and it was a pretty day. But I'm like, I gotta
Yeah.
keep it to that hour as best I can. So and hearing people grumble about why is there no night one, and so
Right.
I
Of
could take
course.
that. But but I gotta get my little pushback. I said, on camera last night at the board meeting, hey, look, you're not gonna co-opt my idea. Like this was my idea. So
Right.
I do know I have to have different times for parents. So I need the community to know that that's in the work with my exec and I. It's just not as easy, trying to grab spaces, in the evening. And one of the things that I'm cognizant of as well, because everything is relative, right? I don't want to just have people come to central office and sit in a cave of a room, right?
Hmm.
Like I want to feature local businesses, local spaces. We have a nice public library there, the different spaces. So that's what we're trying to work out. It's all very deliberate. It's not
Hmm.
haphazard, because as a superintendent in a town or a city, I think part of my unwritten job is to promote that town.
Right.
So, and that's what I want to. If it's the Bean, the little coffee house in the center of town, then I'm going to do that. Why would I not do that? And
Hmm.
so, I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning, and I don't know how many people will show up, but I'll be out there, and cup in hand, and we'll have the first evening event. I think that's coming like maybe a week or two after that. Um,
Mm,
we will have it. So I will just alternate, and we'll just see how it
mhm.
goes.
That's great. I love that. Um, as you know, I'm sure has been a lot of news lately about TikTok trends at schools and how they encourage some really incivil behaviors. What's your take on these TikTok trends?
So first, as an old guy, boy, these kids are terrible. No one's ever been this bad before. In my day, we never did that, right? We only worked with the nuns, right? Yeah. So once I get past lying to myself,
Right.
um, it's just another Walkman issue, right? I
Mhm,
don't like it. I am holding students accountable. I've made that clear to my administrators, accountable for any destruction to our property. So,
mhm,
and I know some parents may not agree or not like that, but if you destroy our property, you're going to pay for it.
mhm,
It's also an incredible opportunity coming off a pandemic to reacclimate young people to school and society. You know,
mhm.
it's pretty easy to follow this app that has taken off crazily, and people do everything, and we become a society where everybody want attention. I get it.
Mhm.
I just have to, like, I don't want to sound like my teachers back then. It is what it is,
Right.
but you're going to pay for any destruction to our properties, and we have a big focus on SEL work, social emotional learning work. So
Mhm,
we've hired with our ESSER funds, we've hired a position I had created, SEL specialists in our
mhm.
schools. This I don't see it as all discipline where you're going to the vice principal or the principal, but this is a great opportunity for my SEL specialists to now connect with those students and talk to them about their own self awareness and their decision making, and all the tenets of SEL, right? So like, why is that probably not a good idea? You know,
Right.
what could you do to fulfill that need for that attention, right? And I don't know who's going to view this, but I can say I actually
Mhm.
threw out to some of my administrators, and I just would like to get past this little TikTok trend thing. But I'm like, well, if we really got to do it so that we all can win, how about we like create a space with some of our paper towel holders or soap dispensers on Velcro, right? So they can tear it off, get their TikTok love, right? And nothing's been harmed, right? And they can go on.
Right.
I I did the soap dispenser, right? Or have a couple of
Mhm,
items to allow them to move around the building and post on TikTok,
mhm.
like the proverbial troll move removed from someone's lawn, right? So they can
Right.
click this one, right? I don't know, the Golden Encyclopedia, if they know what that
Mhm.
is, right? So, like, just I've encouraged my administrators to be creative, but I
Yeah.
have no tolerance for destruction of property.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
you
love
wouldn't.
that. Yeah, because you're really talking about not just reacting to what the students are doing, but really thinking about what's behind it and how you can support them. That's amazing. I love that.
Yep.
So, so finally, what do you think is the best way for young people to get involved in politics or in public life? You talked about what you did as a young person. What do you think is the best way for young people today?
So when you say young, do you have a age range? Because it's different things for me, or you want me to talk through
Yeah.
each age?
I
So
mean, you can answer any way you like, but we deal with college kids, so kind of a little
okay,
bit older than you. Yeah.
perfect. So if we were to say college kids, right? I would say on the latter end of their college career, they could start to pursue getting involved with the local politics, where they're
Hmm.
from. We have a young man who, I hope he does well and wins a seat, but he's running for our school board, right? And so
Mm.
I met with him yesterday. He wanted to meet with me. I guess he had questions, things to clarify for his platform before Election Day. And I just was impressed that this young man, his age, has decided to run for the school board. You normally don't
Mhm.
see that. Um, and his reasons for running were like really solid, right? He's like, I want to be that role model for other young people and let them know like this is our society, our community too. And if we want to see certain changes or we want to see things done or we want to be in the know, we need to get involved. So to see young people get involved with local politics, if you don't want to actually be in the seat, because it's hot to be in the seat, right? Everyone can't do that. Um, I know I've had opportunities in the past to do some work around campaigns, right? So maybe if you believe in this issue so strongly, I tell people you got to go beyond a nice T-shirt, right? Like the T-shirt's nice. So now you got to put some action there. So as I said earlier, all the politicians aren't bad. So you got to muddle through and find the ones that stand for, the ideals and the things that you believe in. And you can support them. They're always looking for help in, political offices and campaign season. So it might require you to stand at a corner for some hours with a sign and talk to people or go door to door and put out some flyers. But getting an understanding as you meet people, right? And as this young man shared, as he was going around the town, he's meeting different people. And he's like, I'm learning. Like, even people that are all from the same party don't all have the same priorities, right? That's a great lesson, right? You can't say, Democrats are a monolithic group, or Republicans, although they're pretty good when it comes to sticking with an issue. I got to give them credit that way. I wish Democrats were a little better. Republicans like, this is our issue, don't sway. But he's learned that, and so they can get involved. Like I said, running for office, get involved in campaigns, or as I stated earlier too, community service. Like all politics are local, right? And like you need to put yourself out there because even doing community service, there's a reason why that community service is needed and necessary. So maybe if you start off, working in that homeless shelter or volunteering, should I say, in that homeless shelter, that might inspire you or spark you, if not to run for office, at least be a part of putting forth information and requests that could potentially become a bill. I volunteer in this homeless shelter, and I realized that 90% of the residents are in this age group. And when I talk to them, just anecdotally, you don't have to be some deep researcher. I'm realizing that most of them their life started to go in a not so good direction at this point. What could we do? You don't have to have all the ideas. Sometimes it's best just to have legitimate questions, but ask the questions. And when you get enough of those young people together, someone's going to come up with some idea that can then be, it's typically the seed, I would say. And, we can all help water and, give it light and help it grow. So it's just look for where the needs are. They're there every day. We just tend to look away, I would like to say. But look for the needs. They're around you. You still get to enjoy college. You still get to do the parties, right? Like it's college. Enjoy the games. It's your last sort of playtime before you have to hit the quote unquote real world. But what's going to drive you in life? And most of us don't find the work for life, the thing that carries us. It's not what drives us. It's not our passion. It's how we survive, but it's not our passion. So, it's a rarity when you get to, I consider myself one of those people, when you get to do work that is your passion, right? So changing people's lives, helping grow other leaders now at this point in my career, I love it, right? It's like leaving a legacy. So you get to live long after you're gone, you're still living on. But if your job is for your survival, there's still other things. What is it you're passionate about? Find that thing you're passionate about and, go for it.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us and all your insights. It's been fantastic talking to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I hope I've said something that will, inspire folks and encourage them, enlighten them, whatever the case may be. It's just what I do.
You did.
Or try to do. And, I appreciate the opportunity to speak and that someone thought I was worthy to share my words.
Thank you for joining us for the Rell Center podcast. Thanks also to Lon Seidman for tech support. Our theme music is from Tim Taj from Pixabay.